AI is rewriting the three things that define us as humans: creativity, learning, and love. This isn't sci-fi. It's happening right now.
When nonlinear editing came out, it's not like it just out of nowhere made a bunch of editors. I just think it made editors that understood the art and skill of editing a lot better.
We are seeing change, and we're seeing both appears to be a rapid change, and then also at the same time, a lot of people who are trying to hold on to the way that things are because they think that creativity in general is in jeopardy.
Kids these days are probably much smarter than you and I probably on how to leverage these tools. There's absolutely proof that
The only question is, are we losing humanity or are we evolving it? The only question is, are we losing humanity or are we evolving it?
quick answer, evolving it, I think. I don't think it's losing it. I definitely think evolving it. But either way, I think entrepreneurs that have their eyes and ears open right now, huge opportunities. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about.
Couldn't agree more. And with that, any of our listeners right now, we'd love to hear from you. Which of these three do you think will change the most? Is it creativity, education, or love? Drop it in the comments, and we'd love to hear from you. So if we go through these, let's start with creativity, because you and I both come from the movie industry, and we are seeing change, and we're seeing both appears to be a rapid change, and then also at the same time, a lot of people who are trying to hold on to the way that things are because they think that creativity in general is in jeopardy. What do you think?
I don't think so. Honestly, I always draw my analogy to when we were in film school a long, long time ago. I'm not going to age ourselves. You can just Google us if you want to know how old we are. But as we were kind of exiting out of film school, nonlinear editing systems were like on the rise fast. I don't think probably very few students cut on film or school film, film schools cut on film. You and I cut on film and made student shorts on 60 millimeter. When nonlinear editing came out, it's not like it just out of nowhere made a bunch of editors. I just think it made the editors that understood the art and skill of editing a lot better, and everybody else just was a hobby. My gut tells me that's what's happening here as well, that whoever is already creative in a specific creative field could just get better. But I don't think it's out of thin air just gonna create a bunch of new creative people.
So what about in the scenario here? Wait, you said it won't create new creative people? Will it?
Yeah, I don't think it's just gonna all of a sudden there's gonna be more creative people just because you're using AI. I don't think it makes you creative.
So will there be less creative people though? Because I mean, let's use an example. When we go back to film industry, there were some editors who did not want to use non-linear editors. Some of them fought it. Some of them literally retired. The worry there too was there were jobs like negative cutters who were going to lose their job because you didn't need to cut negatives even anymore. I mean, there's still a flow today where people are using film, but we'll call that, more rare. So in that scenario, some people did lose their jobs. And I remember we had a person who was on my team at Disney who was literally like one of the last negative cutters, and he had to relearn his job as a digital operator. So do you not think that there is the potential for a lot of jobs being impacted because of AI?
100%. I think that will happen. But just like the example you mentioned, I think certain people will adapt, or new people, like, for example, new students learning how to make movies. They're going to be learning with new technology, not with the old. And the new kind of generation is just going to replace the old generation that either is retiring or is losing their job because they're not adapting. I just think it's going to be a fairly even break even between both sides.
Okay. Yeah. Very interesting. I do think that there will be a lot more of an impact to movie making and even music making. I mean, you name it, as we know it today. But I do think that there's going to be a lot more creative people who rise from places that maybe weren't as expected. I mean, people look at today and they'll be like, "Oh, there's not as many movies in theaters, or they're not as good movies." But when they say that, they forget about the fact that how many new movies are being made because of streaming. And at the same time, even more so, how much content is being created by YouTube and or on YouTube. So I think that we'll see an increase in what happens is movies will be made for these lower budgets. I think both by the studio lower budget, but I also think by these creators who, I mean, I'll use you and me as an example. We've never made a feature length film. We haven't given up yet. We could still have. But at the same time, Like me, I do plan to create a short now that I wanted to do for a while, a couple of shorts, because I can do it now with less hassle. It's still the story I developed long ago, storyboarding and all that and the creative around that I want. That is all still very much me, but I'm gonna be using tools that make it a lot more feasible. So that's why I think there's gonna be this new birth, whereas we went through this period of time where you had these people like Robert Rodriguez, creating a film by donating himself to medical science and then you had even Tarantino kind of come up in his way and coming from a video store. Like, you had all these different stories of these filmmakers. I think a lot of them are gonna be the people who are creating content at home in these really unique ways that all of a sudden will find themselves getting bigger studio deals, but at the same time, they just won't need them as much. I think that puts the union in a really interesting place too, because unions want to hold on and protect those jobs. But if somebody else can go and start doing it with a computer, and we're talking, I guess we could call it what, vibe movie making, where somebody could just talk to it and say, here's what I want to do, and this is what it should be. I've only got the ending. It's really cool. It's this. And I've got a beginning. Help me fill in the rest of it. And it may not be great, but at the same time, that's, I think, the big question people are saying is, will it be surprising? Some people are worried that all of a sudden, all we'll see is AI movies and not human based movies.
If you like what you're seeing and you want to see more, be sure to click on the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click on the bell. It lets YouTube know you want to support the This Is the Way podcast, and it helps spread the word, and we greatly appreciate it. And now, back to the episode. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, stories, the good stories will surface no matter what, whether it's AI or not. But we're only talking about film, right? And telling
Sure.
stories in a moving picture. But when you move into other types of art, you don't collect art mainly because of the art. It's because of the story behind the creator. And to me, that's really hard to replace when there's 3D printers, so they can create sculptures, but nobody's collecting those. You collect sculpture collectors collect because there's a story tied to it. Whether
Interesting.
it's Van Gogh and his ear cut, whatever he did, or Picasso. Like, now, could today's Picasso use AI to be better? 100%.
Yeah,
But is it automatically going to create new like 10,000 Picassos? I don't think so.
that's fair. I like how you look at it that way. Okay, so then for entrepreneurs, where's the opportunity?
For entrepreneurs, I think the opportunity is the tools that, it's the whole, what's the analogy during like the gold rush? Don't chase the gold, sell the shovel. I think is how that thing
Yeah,
goes.
something like that. Yep.
I think that's what it is now too. It's like, don't compete producing things with the tools. Build the shovels that a lot of people are seeking out right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I keep getting the ad for making, AI movies because they want to show me and teach me how, and that's what they're selling is a shovel to do so. So, and you and I are actually part of an investment fund whose goal is to look at and try to find these opportunities that are these shovels. Ultimately, also, to help drive creativity because that is a belief that we have. But at the same time, ultimately, it's an investment fund. You're doing it to see a return on your investment, and I think it is interesting as we start to see some of these different things and ideas out there, and without necessarily giving several of those away, I do think where people could look at it today is just like, okay, AI in its own right can enable and improve a lot of the technology out there that exists literally on a. I mean, even think about it on the basic camera, level. I mean, already now on some of these sets, people have the cameras that are following them around that are pre-programmed that are out there. So it's like imagining about how Scorsese's original shot that, don't get me wrong, that was beautiful in was it Goodfellas when he goes down, this whole section into the fight, no, Raging Bull. No, but Goodfellas, he had another one. Anyway, in that scenario, yeah, that was amazing that they were able to do that. But at the same time, what you'll be able to do and push because of these cameras, and the cameras are going to go a lot further now because it's going to be that amazing shot people are running how they did, because it started on the ground, went up into the sky, he came back around to the other location. But I also think some of these other things we're seeing now where people can go into a tool and be able to say, I'm looking for, I mean, right now they could do it with VO, Google's, tool, and Sora, and you could describe to it what you want. It's adding sound, it's adding all these. But once more, the artist is now going to take it and be like, but it needs this effect. And they're going to go to add the effect. Now they may add the effect from a known library, or once more, AI tool, they may go into that and be like, I need to create a tool like this, and keep giving it direction until they find exactly what they want. And I think that's the artistry still, but it's a matter of how you can arm everybody with those types of. of tools, let alone other potential in the media where people can use it. I know people have talked about it for VFX and things like that, which there's a lot of VFX artists who are usually, it's often done in across the world in countries where they're paid far less. And I think in this scenario, some of their work conditions are also questionable, and it's always rushed. Well, in this case, maybe it's not rushed. Maybe it allows a better paycheck. So I think those are also the opportunities in it.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I hope doesn't happen, I hope there isn't a lot of professional looking junk in the market
Yeah,
because it's
AI
very
slop.
easy.
I'll call it AI
Yeah, it's
slop.
very easy to look professional, but if it's just the stories don't make sense or it's just a hobby, it just floods the market. But
Yeah.
anyways,
I think it's fair. I think one thing you see is you're going to see people jumping up to build these platforms, as you said, the shovels that help, I'll refer to them as the bedroom creators to stand out. These people who I think have these ideas, have these stories, but for different reasons have not fully pursued them. I think there's going to be tools that help to guide storytelling and editing and more monetization around that, maybe helping people better connect with the audience with these smaller projects that they're making. And I think you'll also find that, as AI democratizes creativity, ultimately you're going to have, a lot of markets emerge for tools and platforms for people who want to express themselves. And already it's hilarious. There was that Quibi existed in the past. And I'm not saying this is all fully using AI now, but at the time you're like, that's crazy. Who wants to see these short things? But there is this new business model that's coming out now that's literally monetizing in that way. And I think we're going to find that distribution starts becoming the real big question, is how people are going to get these things to show up to the people that they want them to show up to, as studios probably lose a little bit of grasp because theaters are already losing some of their importance in the marketplace, as kids like yours and mine would rather watch things like, YouTube for that matter. So then, anything else on this topic before we jump over to the next one?
no, let's do it.
All right. So, education. What is the future of education? What do you think?
A lot of cheating.
But is it cheating? Is it cheating?
Well, I would say that probably the universities and high schools probably consider it cheating. Uh,
That's
I
why they're
wouldn't.
broken. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't. But yeah, you could argue that it's borderline cheating because you're you're leveraging the web for
So
information that you can access right away versus you doing the work. It's just kids these days are probably smart, much smarter than you and I probably, on how to leverage these tools and speeding up their work at schools. But it's different type of smarts, and to me, hey, if they know how to do it right, why not?
that's it, because to me, it's like, oh, cheating. It's like, and I know these are the arguments out there, but it's like, oh, so a teacher's telling the kid, you know what? Look, you use creative problem solving to be able to get the answer for that. We don't teach creative problem solving here. We're teaching you to memorize things. Like that to me is kind of what's broken about it, because no
Yeah,
longer is memorization necessary because we have all the answers in our pocket. It's the question of, both creative problem solving, and there is this balance, because I think a lot of people can probably relate to when they ask ChatGPT something and all of a sudden they're like, nah, dude, that ain't right. I know that's not right because I know the real answer. So you do need to be able to discern between those. But ultimately, yeah, like Dan Martell, I think, said it recently, and I really appreciated it. He was talking to school and he's like, no, like that should be a tool that people can use. And education should now change to help people. Like, what does education in the future look like when you do have a tool like that? Now, what things are you teaching people? Actually, let's
yeah.
just go back to maybe being more human, more creative.
So let me ask you this:
Yeah.
think of the usage of ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, whatever, any of these tools. What would traditionally be called cheating, right? It's
Mhm.
you're not doing the work and you're using a shortcut to get the answers to pass the test. Okay. So let's only focus on that type of usage. So now you are in desperate need of a heart doctor. Would you want that doctor that was able to pass medical school through that way? Or would you want that doctor to have gone through medical school and not use those tools in the borderline cheating way?
Well, my future doctor is going to be a robot. Oh, so I think in the scenario, and I do think that there are certain careers where I really want. I think doctors. I think engineers, based on certain things they have to learn, because they need to understand what to do. It's kind of like, it's funny. Not that Star Trek should be the baseline for any of these, but it's funny because if you think about Star Trek and the technology they have in that future there, you still look at the ship and what they have on the ship, and it's like, oh, well, the engineer still plays a key role. The captain does, the doctor does. Like they still have these people who could think when the technology and everything around them breaks. So I absolutely think that you need a lot of that. But do I think that people need to learn a lot of the other things that we have to go through in school in order to get there? Like, look at school in general. It's like you have to take X amount of units and get this many credits, and you have to have these electives. And I get they're trying to expose you to all these things, but it's in the end, it's like, but what is the thing that the person's actually trying to learn? Let's focus on that. Let's actually, if anything, sometimes extend some of that learning, although doctors do that in their own right when they have to continue to, go off and what do they call it? Not intern, but when they uh,
Apprentice.
yeah, but there's another name I'm forgetting anyways. Somebody will know and drop it below and put us in our place. But so I do think, but I think at the same time, if I asked you about so many other degrees, like for us, we went to film school. Did we need film school?
No, no, probably not. I mean,
Which yeah.
my personal opinion on this, and it could be a different episode that we can debate, but most careers, the actual material that you learn, you don't need schooling anymore. What you do need though is relationships.
Mhm.
And to me, that's where schools come in these days. That's why, like, you know, my son Eric, he's only 7 now, but in 11 years, ready for college. The way I'm gonna kind of push him is if you can't get into an Ivy League school, don't go to school. Because to me, that the
Interesting.
relationships of the future kind of presidents and CEOs, that's where you're gonna meet. And those relationships is really gonna matter. Community college, not so much.
Yeah, that is interesting, and you may also make sure he has a good therapist so that if he doesn't make that in the future, he doesn't feel like he's let his, father down. Why bother? Well, and then but I think it is interesting because right now, though, for your kids, you're doing specialized school for your kids?
No, I mean they're pretty young still, so they're just in private school.
But that's what I mean. To me, that's specialized. For
Oh, yeah, if that's what you meant by it, yes.
yeah,
They are in private school, and it's pretty amazing that, my daughter Ava, who just turned 5 in transitional kindergarten, can do addition, subtraction, and multiplication. I was like,
nice,
"Holy crap."
nice.
I feel like I was probably, like, in 9 and 10 before I was doing multiplication. So,
Yeah.
at least the education and she's not using AI, by the way.
Yeah.
It's all traditional learning.
For me, because I transitioned to schools because I moved a lot when I was little for, different, reasons, I ended up falling behind and missing, gaps for me there. But back to it, you're choosing now as a parent, private school, I'm choosing homeschool. So we're both saying that we don't think the traditional system is the right system. So that's why I already think that's highly in jeopardy, let alone now you add AI. Let's talk about some of the entrepreneurial opportunities that might be there. I mean, I think one of them you already had Elon Musk was testing where he had, I think, partnered with somebody at one point to create a school that was leaning more into the kids' strengths and where they wanted to go and those things, and like a lot of these other skills that are going to be important in a future where memorization matters a whole lot less. So I think around that and around probably people thinking about how they can channel AI to create tools that maximize learning, the chips in the brain, as much as people maybe get scared about that, I do think that is going to be a thing because Matrix style, if you want to be able to, fly a helicopter or, I know this goes against what you were saying earlier, but operate on somebody, just upload that chip that's got, again, I'm simplifying, but then I'm not at the same time. How fast things are moving here, I think it is really interesting. But what else do you think is going to be entrepreneur opportunities in
Oh,
the
I also think, I don't think it's a far stretch by me saying that at least in the United States, the healthcare industry is broken, especially when it comes to seeing a doctor, insurance, the cost of medication. I think those are all opportunities that I'm pretty convinced that AI could solve. Whether it's,
cheating and going out of our education mode?
what was
You're
that?
medical now. You're cheating and going outside of our education space. You're
No,
supposed
I know, but it's all tied because
okay,
if you could learn some of these how actually AI works, there's opportunities in everywhere.
I see.
Healthcare. It's just to me, it's using education to learn about AI to then
Yeah.
apply it to anywhere else. But if you're referencing like how do you actually impact education itself using AI, I think that's where you could customized schooling.
Yep.
If you can offer customized schooling that gets you from point A to point B in 2 years instead of 4 years, and AI is the at the backdrop of it, why not?
And I think with that, what that does mean is, look, there's public education systems and I mean, most of the world, but US is not set up. I mean, sadly, it's daycare as well. Like my sister hated that because she was a teacher and she'd be like, look, we're just like, like during the pandemic, that's where it was like, gosh, this is in some ways what we are. So parents can go and work. Well, with that, it's like, okay, then yes, what new things and platforms? I mean, when I was in school, Oregon Trail,
Oh
Max,
yeah,
these were all being bought because those were how they taught kids. So what is it now that's gonna be used to talk kids, and how can people get in and be able to offer those and become these big future,
yeah. I
companies
just
that are
I just thought about a phrase. You know how you said the public education system? We should coin a phrase, the AI education system.
there you go, I
That's
like it,
it.
yeah,
That's
education
it.
systems.
That's what it is. The AI education system.
Yeah, I like it, and I do think such a huge thing because right now, imagine, yes, you need to learn drawing, but imagine then somebody advances to how you now use some of these tools, but once you get to the artistry, you can then understand how to direct that better, and it's like, what are the fundamentals? As soon as you get past those, then you start using what sadly, I'd say sadly, I can't, there's things today. Now I look at cursive. I don't even know why cursive ever truly needed to be, exist. And today people are looking at that a little bit more like, okay, there's some people out there who probably love, calligraphy and other stuff. We're like, how dare you? But like with that, I think that's one example. But these days, even kids typing, I think we should learn typing. But I see how much my kids talk to these things, and AI is making it even easier. And now I've downloaded certain apps so that I could talk and make my work go faster because we could talk faster than we can type. So I think there's
Yeah.
a lot of
I actually saw this, read this article. It talked about the top 10 most how do they say, like, skills that are basically almost extinct, and 2 of them were, writing cursive and, typing. That
interesting.
it's 'Cause a lot of people are not typing in
Yeah.
the traditional way. It's either typing on your phone in a very different way than you were taught in the '90s how to type,
Yeah.
or it's all voice, to text translation. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. A couple of areas here too, just kind of highlight that I think will, be more change that people might look at in the future is when we think about teachers today, people talk about the number of teachers. And it's like, okay, it's like a 30-to-1 ratio or something. Maybe there's a teacher's assistant and that helps the ratio a little bit. But ultimately you don't have a lot of the guidance that a single student needs. But in the future, arguably AI can become personal tutors and 24/7 and help kids beyond a way that a teacher could. Now, sure, there's some dangers with that, but there's also some opportunity. And at the same time, these really catered learning plans, like think of teachers shifting and becoming more of learning architects, not just instructors. Like, I think that's really interesting when you think about it. They see a kid, they build a plan for the kid. Like they start thinking about things differently than today, where they're just trying to get across whatever they have to get across because that's how they're measured, and you're not waiting for that feedback, depending on, what it is you're talking to that teacher until you can see them, if it's heck, even if it's some of the classes where I think in college or that even where it's like, oh, I'll see you next week. I'll talk to the teacher. No, like you can channel so much of this stuff. And I think the other really fascinating thing is how much is AI going to level the playing field? Like there are a lot of people out there, and this maybe goes back to your creativity thing you said earlier. It's like, well, some people have more creativity than others, or they lean more into it. Well, in this scenario, is it really going to actually help lift up a bunch of people you have who maybe did not perform well in school, but maybe they can still lean in to AI and have a lot of success later in life?
Yeah,
I think
I
it'll be
mean, I
interesting.
think that's a possibility. Going back to your question about entrepreneurial opportunities, I think there's 2 big ones in education. Robotics, kind of, where you talked about tutors.
Yeah.
Can you imagine just, instead of when they say like 1 teacher per every 30 students, well, how about 1 teacher and 5 robots per every classroom?
That is interesting. The question is, will you need the in-person or will you okay with just the digital, whatever it is, online, they
Yeah,
jump on and talk to
I
the
think
avatar?
over time, probably you might not even need the person. The other area that I think might be interesting, opportunity, if you think about a lot of schools, especially the younger kids, they still use pencil, pen, and writing. And then the teachers have to grade these tests, look over. But how about if all those papers were fed into AI. AI does all the grading,
Mhm.
frees up the teacher's time, but also is capturing that data, and that data gets used to create personalized plans per student.
Love that.
And that way, it's not just generic, but it's like, okay, this specific student needs help with this. So let's the next test, let's focus on that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, it is interesting, because I think that that alone, like, I bet you anything, there are some teachers out there in this world who dedicate even their night hours trying to do the best that they can because they believe so much in that child. That's the person who should help to architect this future of schooling. Because I think you're right. Ultimately, I think there's a big opportunity that it can destroy bad education, for lack of a better way to put it. So, but
yeah.
let's move on then to
Yeah.
the last one, the third one, and what this means, and that's love. What
Yeah.
does the
Maybe the more
future
controversial one, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly it. So, what do you think love looks like, or should I say, what is the impact that AI is gonna have on traditional relationships?
So, I mean, already for many, many years since the internet, people have been chatting with people that they've never seen,
Mhm.
or they've only seen a picture, and sometimes it's a fake picture. You know, the whole rise of catfishing. So, so there's absolutely proof that you could build a connection with somebody that's just responding to you.
Yeah.
So, phase one, connection.
Mhm,
Can AI replace that? 100%.
mhm.
And we see it. Once you go after that initial connection phase to a little more, maybe it's bonding and intimacy,
Yeah.
that's where I'm on the side that says, nope, AI can't replace that. There's something about
Int
human touch, human emotion, human sexuality, human, sensuality, all of that that I just don't think AI can replace because it's what makes us human. It's what the reason why you go out and seek a community, the reason why you go out and want to be in a crowd with in a concert. There's
Yeah.
just something about that human energy that I don't think AI can replace because emotions, everything about what makes us humans, I don't think AI can duplicate.
Okay, but so when you say that and I think about intimacy initially, is hard for me to think how it's gonna replace that, although, again, in the future, it's like I think of, the movie AI with Haley Joel Osment, and there was a scene in there, is it Jude Law? He played Joe the Gigolo, I think,
Oh
and
yeah,
in this future, the AI looked human-like, it felt human-like, and yet it met your unmet, like, needs. It knew how to talk to you. I mean, ChatGPT now, even when you look at it at time, it's like, "Oh, great job, good thinking." Like, at times, I'm even surprised when I'm like, "Hey, thanks, buddy." Oh, wait a minute. No, but, like, more so than others, like, people probably get more appreciation from ChatGPT than they get from their own boss in the workplace. So, I do think that some people just suck at relationships, and in fact, this is something that could fit both education and here, is that I do think, like, the potential in the future of helping people more on the emotional intelligence front, even if it is that live one, if it's in a chip, if it's in your glasses, if it's in your ear, that's like, "Okay, you probably came across a little stern. Why don't you try the differently?" Like, that might still help the person be better in a relationship, but it's still AI helping them, and then, yeah, maybe you go to dinner, you'll be like, "Okay, do I want to be my true self and pull it out of my ear and just be that?" But that could be hilarious in itself. They do that, and the person's like, "Who are you? You're not the person I married. Hold on, hold on. Oh, yes, dear." It's like knowing the exact thing to say, which us guys already suck at. Like, girls would probably appreciate that we were, a little bit more in tune to that. So I don't know. I think the movie Her is another really good, interesting one where you see how he falls for it, and you start to understand how he might, because it's filling that unmet need that he couldn't get from somebody else in the world.
yeah.
And I do think that
I
there will
mean,
be a future of relationships, almost like of relationships where somebody is introducing their robot girlfriend to mom.
maybe, but not in our lifetime. Like, I don't think that level of AI to replace human is going to happen in our lifetime. I mean,
You
look,
forgot AI is gonna let us live forever.
we're it's 2025.
Yeah.
In 2015, we were supposed to have hoverboards, and we
Yeah.
still don't have hoverboards. Okay,
Yeah.
so so I don't think movies are a good barometer to use on when how fast things are going to happen because I'm still waiting for my hoverboard.
Yeah.
uh, but I'm just going to contain this into our lifetime, and I don't think that AI will replace anything beyond that initial connection in our lifetime. But I do love your idea of entrepreneurial opportunity here, an AI coach in your ear
Oh,
to help with whoever you're trying to court to you know first dates,
yeah.
dinners, and whatever it is. AI coach would be pretty awesome, I think.
Which, by the way, on one hand, it can be a really big help. On the other hand, is it another form of catfishing, but in a different way because it was never you they fell for? There was that guy, I forget. I think did he have an
Well,
MTV
do
show?
anybody really fall from the first few dates that the real person? No, anyway.
Yeah, that's a fair point. The MTV show, wasn't there that guy back in the day? He, like, taught, like remember it was negatives he'd say about girls in order to,
Oh,
win them
there was a show. I forget what it's called, but he basically coached guys how to pick up girls. That's the
Yeah,
show.
so he's probably right there. This is the, one up from
Yeah,
for the
maybe
picking up
he
side.
needs to, dump all his knowledge into a LLM, and that
Yeah.
becomes a coach.
No, exactly it. That would probably be, one, but I do think that, like, even outside of it, I mean, if we go to other things of where, and this isn't exactly relationships, but it can still exist. There are people out there who are struggling with depression, anxiety, and others. Could that same thing, that ability to help them and talk to them in a way that we suck like at it. Like people go to specialized, therapists for this. And by the way, sometimes they suck too. But but the idea here of actually having somebody who can do that. This is why I think if somebody really felt like they understood them and, imagine this. This sounds a little bit weird, but I was just thinking about it, and maybe this is another idea. Somebody shows up to, you show up to a coffee shop or wherever it is, and your AI already placed the order ahead for your drink for you. I mean, that's not far off from what technology can do, but in that scenario, how do you not start thinking, "Oh my gosh, you did that," or it's your birthday, everybody forgot, but your AI somehow behind your back, how these work, even though it might be out of your own paycheck too, delivered flowers, you know? Like, it's gonna be really
Yeah.
interesting, and especially when it crosses over and it turns out you fall for it in that way. But I'm gonna ask you another question. In the last couple of years, OnlyFans has exploded, and if you think about it in that scenario, like, obviously real human, but now there's an increase in AI similar, sites or things that are AI driven. The girls aren't real. They still have lots of like followers that are growing. And this is when the quality of things aren't so good today. I'm talking, you expect two boobs, maybe it's three or four boobs now. But like the idea is like what happens to OnlyFans?
Yeah, I mean, to me, first, we started this with AI replacing or impacting love and connection. I think that's what was, right?
Mhm.
To me, this is neither. This is lust.
Interesting.
uh,
Yeah.
and And it's to me, it's very similar to that first level of connection where you can fall for somebody, not even seeing them. Well, in this
Yeah.
case, you're seeing somebody that's very human-like, or or better than human-like sometimes because they're maybe more attractive. Yeah, 100%. I think your brain won't know the difference if you're looking at a fake human or a real human in that context. But your brain is going to be very disappointed when it realizes that you can't touch that thing that you're looking at.
Yeah, that is interesting. Although this is the other question, you get to VR and you get to other things, and you think you are because of what they, like who's to say, like what that is. Somebody might be like, oh, I'm married to Jennifer Lopez, or that was what came to my mind. Oh, no, you're not. No, no. In the Oasis, Real Big Player One, that's my wife. And what if they look forward to and every day they escape there because she's amazing, and maybe the AI gets so good that it programs a periodic fight so you can then have that reconnection that happens to it too.
Why it keeps asking, "How do I look?" Is that
Yeah, exactly. And then they're gonna dang it. Um, no, sadly to this day, this will make me sound like a horrible person, but I'm like, it is one of those where I'm like, when I see my wife and or mom around, like they're always so good at saying that kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm just not as much. So who do they go to when they want it? How does it? Oh, that's great. I like it. Even though at times I'm like, but you guys just say that about everything. Like, doesn't
Yeah.
again, people
Going back to the OnlyFans comment, and then what you mentioned earlier about creativity and distribution, to me, it's going to come down to the same thing, that just because there's a super attractive male, female, whatever, you're peeking at an OnlyFans, by itself is not going to be successful. The person behind it, that is able to get the word out there and create a marketing buzz around that person, that fake
Yeah.
AI person, is how it's going to work anyway. So at the end of the day, it all comes back to the human that should.
Okay. But with that, let's go down that pathway. So if you fall in love with, we'll call her Donna. I don't know why, that's like an old school name, but you fall in love with Donna, okay? And Donna's amazing, and you have feelings for Donna. And then you meet the person behind Donna, Dawn, and it's no longer. So did you just fall in love with him? Or were you falling based on what you said that they're the one behind it all? What does it do?
Well, that's why I think your brain's gonna be very disappointed.
Okay.
It's not Don, but it's Don.
I think that is fair. I do think, yeah, this is where it's really interesting. I think lazy love is in trouble, and I think AI once more might actually make people have to kind of step up their game a bit more. And I think that's another opportunity. Also, is people have these matchmaking services now, which surprisingly a lot of people end up waiting over there. Imagine an actual matchmaking service that can match because AI goes into their AI language behind the scenes and starts to actually talk about who have real connections based on what they really know about people, and based on, they're probably going to experiment and get some people they match that didn't work out so well, and then they'll use that data because, it's like, oh, do you find two people who have similar faults, or do you find somebody who has this and the other? Like, what will that look like? And that's going to be really interesting to see
Yeah.
what it'll look like, because I think
Well,
that's another.
I've got an idea for Netflix, because
Yeah.
they're already doing this where people are falling in love without ever seeing the person. Love is blind.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Uh, I am a sucker, and that is one of my guilty pleasures.
Yeah.
My wife laughs at me when I'm binge watching those shows, but Netflix should try and have an AI try to see if an AI would, if a girl or a guy would
Mm,
fall in love with the AI,
that is good.
as an experiment.
I really like that. I think the answer is yes, they will. What do you think?
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I would love to see it.
But so then that goes to it, because I think in the beginning you said it'd still be, hard to replace some of those things, but now let's just talk
Yeah,
about
but that's
future.
step one. That's the connection phase.
Okay.
I don't think you
Let's
need to see somebody to fall in love, but then to progress to the next stage,
Yeah.
it's not going to work.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Now, that'll be that question, is if in the future then for their maybe season 2, they'll have the robot based on how they're advancing
Yeah.
now.
So who can we call to pitch? At Netflix can we call to pitch this? We are
Right?
both people there. Which one? Should we?
They're gonna watch this. They got this, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, awesome. All right. So again, here, like just hearing this, and actually, there's a couple of them. We'll see if we want to pursue any of the ones we talked about in here. But I do think it's really interesting, and it's at this stage, we're looking at things at almost I call it higher level, and then we try to go smaller. But really, the people who get extremely good at this are the ones who are trying to solve a problem that they specifically need, whether it's for themselves or that they see for somebody else as a challenge. And I think actually solutions the $1 million solutions, the $1 billion solutions are actually even a lot smaller than some of the things we nailed. It's like it's the company that gets bought by the other company because they developed the very basic, concept around what that actually, if I jump real quick, there was a movie, I don't know if you watched it yet, on HBO called Mountainhead. Did you end up watching that?
Nope.
So in Mountainhead, I'm just gonna some spoiler alert here. If people are worried, then I'm sorry. I guess you don't watch, but listen a little bit. I'll tell you when the main spoilers here. But the concept is these billionaire AI folks, Steve Carell being one of them in this movie, all go off to their nice, resort in the mountains in the snow. I believe in Utah or something like that. Anyway, or New Mexico, I don't know, Colorado. And when they're there, it turns out the guy who's like the least rich of them all, I don't know if he's fully hit the billionaire status. Well, he developed an app that was more on the emotion side. It provided people with more of that like emotional support and things that they need. But these other guys, they were the ones creating like the Soras and the other stuff. Well, things start to go south when all of a sudden people are using those to create these fakes that people didn't know weren't real. And all of a sudden, the whole world starts to go into, like chaos. And this is where more of the spoiler hits. all of a sudden, as that happens, their stock at first it was up and up, and they're just comparing, dollar amount values. But then, as all the chaos happens, their numbers start to decline a bit. But what happens is the one who was building the emotional support and the other ones, his took off and goes sky high. Pretty soon, he's worth more than they are, and that's when again things go really dark, and now they want to try to take him out and take his toll. But the idea is, I do think that that's his potential. We're seeing this huge rush right now on this side of things that are about these tools that will make things more efficient or let people do more creativity. But I really think that there is going to be a lot of money in these emotional based ones that will help people in the future. So let us know your thoughts on where you think the future is going. Do you think love is in jeopardy? Do you think education needs to or will change, or is it going to just completely blow up? Is there anybody doing it right? If so, we'd love to hear that. Let us know also in the comments. And for that matter, creativity. Are you taking advantage of some of these new tools, or are you one of the ones that says saying, the sky is falling and running away from it? And if that is the case, then you're not very entrepreneurial thinking right now. Let's put on an entrepreneur hat, whether you work in a business or whether you're looking to start your own business, because that mentality is going to help you thrive in either one of those places.
Yeah,
We will see.
and I'm looking forward to reading those comments. So drop them below, man. Have a good one.